The stars were quiet over the Sol system. Once this region had been a sea of signals. Trade beacons, war chatter, human songs carried on radio waves. Now it was nothing but static and ghosts. The Zelthar Voyager glided through the emptiness like a silver blade cutting through ink. Its hull shimmered with refracted starlight, its engines whispering in the void. Inside, the air was heavy with tension. Every crew member had heard the stories, the myths of Earth, the cradle of the extinct humans. Commander Virek stood before the viewport, his blue eyes reflecting the distant dead planet. It hung in space like a wounded jewel, dark, cracked, and silent. Even the moon looked scarred, its surface pitted with unnatural burns. "Report," he ordered quietly. Science Officer Terrine's voice trembled as she replied. "Readings confirm. Residual energy beneath the crust. Power output unknown. It shouldn't be possible after 6 centuries." Virek's mandibles twitched. And yet there it is. Behind him, the communications array flickered. For a heartbeat, a faint sound crackled through the static. Soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. 3 beats, a pause. 3 beats again. Terrine frowned. That's pattern repetition, artificial, old Terran frequency range. Navigator Kor turned in his chair. Morse code? The crew looked at each other. Few living species remembered Morse, but Virek did. He'd studied the ancient archives of humanity, their wars, their brilliance, their final disappearance. He activated the translator. The computer processed the pattern, then displayed a single line across the holoscreen. "Stay away." Silence filled the bridge. Even the hum of the ship seemed to fade. Virek exhaled slowly. "Warnings are for the fearful. We are scientists. Proceed to descent orbit." "Commander," Terrine whispered, "if that signal's genuine, it's over 600 years old. Who's sending it?" Virek didn't answer. He simply watched Earth grow larger in the viewport, a sphere of ash and storm. As the Voyager approached, the planet's clouds glowed faintly with lightning, illuminating scorched continents below. Continents that once held billions of lives. Virek couldn't help but feel something primal stir in him, awe mixed with dread. Humanity had been the great terror of early galactic history. They had risen fast, burned bright, and then vanished in a single final war. No one ever discovered who their enemy had been. Some said they had fought themselves. Others whispered of darker things, that humanity had faced something not of flesh. The ship pierced the upper atmosphere. Instantly, the hull began to shudder as ancient defense satellites came alive. Charred metal husks drifted like ghosts, their long-dead weapons twitching in the magnetic storms. "Multiple pings," Kor said. "Automated turrets." "But they're offline." "No threat detected," Virek nodded. "Maintain course. We'll land near the northern hemisphere, the coordinates of their last transmission before the fall." Outside, clouds of grey ash swirled like fog. Below, through the haze, they saw the skeletal remains of cities, skyscrapers broken like teeth, rivers turned to black glass. As they descended lower, their scanners began to glitch. Static filled every channel. The readings twisted, temperatures dropping and rising at random, and then came the whispers. At first it sounded like interference, at random noise, perhaps the wind, but then the pattern became clearer, words buried in static, voices speaking in broken human tongues. Terrine covered her audio ports, shaking her head. "It's not possible. These are human vocal frequencies." The translator strained, decoding fragments. "Don't. Come, back. We told you." "Run." The last word repeated again and again, louder each time, echoing through every system. "Commander," shouted Kor, "it's bleeding through all channels. I can't block it." The ship's lights flickered. Warning symbols flashed across the bridge. System interference. Data corruption detected. Virek gripped the console, his calm beginning to crack. "Hold course," he barked. "It's nothing but residual signal bleed. Psychological response from long-dead networks." But deep down he wasn't so sure. Through the viewing window the Earth loomed. Enormous now, a vast wasteland of blackened terrain and glowing fissures. Lightning traced the scars of continents like veins of fire. The ship descended lower, slicing through layers of toxic clouds. Ash rained down on the hull, making the vessel sound as if it were traveling through sand. Then the signal stopped. The whispers vanished. The silence was worse. Kor glanced at the commander. "We're through the ionosphere." Landing protocols ready. Virek gave a single nod. Proceed. The landing thrusters ignited, and the ship broke through the final layer of storm. What awaited them below made every alien heart freeze, a vast crater spread out for miles. Not natural, not from impact. It looked carved, like something massive had burrowed up from beneath. And at the crater's center stood a single black spire, rising hundreds of meters high, untouched by time or decay. Tareen's voice was barely a whisper. There's power coming from that structure. The readings are off the scale. Virek stared at it, mesmerized. A remnant of their war. Perhaps the key to what happened here. But as the ship descended closer, the sensors began to pulse again. The same pattern as before. 3 beats, a pause. 3 beats. Commander, said Core quietly, the signal's not coming from orbit anymore. It's coming from that tower. The words froze the entire crew. They all turned toward the viewport. The spire's surface shimmered faintly, as if aware of their gaze. Then without warning, the power surged. Every light on the ship went out. For a moment, only the red emergency lamps glowed, and in that dim crimson glow the comms came alive one last time. A human voice, distorted and old, whispered across every speaker, soft, pleading, unmistakably alive. If you hear this, turn back. Don't wake them. Don't wake us. The message ended in a burst of static. The silence returned. Virek straightened, jaw tight. Mark coordinates. Prepare landing teams. We begin surface expedition immediately. Tareen looked at him, eyes wide with fear. Sir, what if that was their last survivor? Virek turned toward the dead planet beyond the glass. His voice was calm, too calm. Then we'll find out what he was so afraid of. Outside, lightning licked across the horizon, lighting up the ruins of Earth for one terrible instant. And for that single second, the crew could swear they saw movement, shapes shifting between the shadows of broken cities. Shapes that were watching them descend. The Zelthar Voyager landed on what had once been the heart of a continent. The moment the landing struts touched the blackened ground, a deep vibration hummed beneath the hull, like the planet itself was breathing. The air outside was thick and grey, filled with drifting particles that shimmered faintly, almost like dust made of glass. Through the viewing window, the world was dead. No movement, no wind, only a flat wasteland of cracked earth and half-buried ruins stretching to the horizon. Virek stood in silence, his eyes fixed on the massive crater ahead. It was wider than any city they had ever seen, and at its center rose the black spire they'd detected from orbit. It pierced the grey sky like a knife, smooth and seamless, untouched by the centuries that had erased everything else. Environmental readings, Virek ordered. His voice echoed softly inside the silent bridge. Tareen tapped her console. Toxic atmosphere. Radiation levels moderate but survivable for 2 hours with suits. But, sir, the energy source inside that structure, it's still active. Whatever's down there is running on a power grid older than any known technology. Good, Virek replied. That's why we're here. A minute later, the landing ramp descended, releasing a hiss of sterilized air. The exploration team, 5 alien scientists in sealed suits, stepped onto the scorched ground. Every step crunched softly as they moved through ash that looked almost metallic. Above them, the sky was a dull red haze. Not a single star was visible. Tareen raised her scanner. No signs of organic life, but... Wait. She paused, tapping the device. I'm detecting structures beneath the surface. Hundreds of meters deep. Artificial tunnels. Virek's gaze drifted to the spire again. Human infrastructure? Possibly, she said. But there's something strange. The geometry isn't consistent. The deeper it goes, the more distorted it becomes. They began walking toward the crater. Each step closer made the air feel heavier, thicker, as if gravity itself wanted them gone. The ground sloped downward, revealing the crater's sheer scale. It wasn't just a hole, it was a wound. The earth had been melted, fused into smooth black glass that reflected their torchlights like a mirror. Halfway down, they found the first skeletons. Thousands of them, piled in perfect circles around the crater's base, each arranged in a spiral formation. Not scattered by chaos, placed deliberately like part of a ritual. One of the crew whispered, "By the stars." They buried themselves this way. Tareen knelt beside one of the remains. The bones were charred, fused with something metallic. When she brushed the ash away, she found faint circuitry etched into the skull. They weren't just human, she said quietly. They were merged with machines, Virek frowned. Cybernetic soldiers? Maybe, she answered. But why arrange them like this? Before anyone could respond, the ground beneath their feet vibrated again. The scanners flared with warnings. The spire ahead began to glow, faint red lines of light crawling up its smooth surface, like veins awakening after a long sleep. The crew froze. Energy surge, Tareen shouted. Massive output increase from the structure. The air trembled as a low hum filled the crater. The sound wasn't mechanical, it felt alive. A voice, low and distorted, echoed from their comms in ancient English. Containment breach detected. Defense protocols reactivated. Virek spun toward Tareen. What was that? The signal came from the spire itself, she said, eyes wide. Commander. It's online. Above them, the tower's tip began to pulse with light. Dust lifted into the air. Every skeleton around them started to vibrate, small metallic fragments in their remains humming to the same rhythm. Back to the ship, Virek ordered. They ran up the slope, the ground shaking beneath their boots. As they reached the rim, a deafening sound tore through the wasteland. The spire released a blast of energy, a shock wave of red light that spread across the crater like ripples through water. The force knocked them to the ground. When the light faded, they saw something terrifying. The black glass that coated the crater's interior had cracked open. From beneath, thousands of small glowing shapes were moving, machines, insect-like, crawling up through the fissures. Each one carried the faint outline of a human face carved into its metallic shell. Tareen screamed into her comm. They're coming out of the ground. The ship's defense drones activated automatically, firing bright plasma bolts down into the pit. The first wave of creatures disintegrated under the barrage, but for every one that fell, a dozen more emerged. Virek pulled himself upright, eyes locked on the tower. This wasn't a burial site, he said quietly. It's a containment zone. The others looked at him in horror. Tareen shook her head. Containment? For what? These things? Virek's gaze hardened. No, for something else. Something worse. Behind them, the spire pulsed again. The Morse signal returned through their headsets. 3 beats, a pause, 3 beats. But this time it wasn't random. It formed words. The translation appeared across their visor displays. Don't open the core, Virek shouted toward the ship. Prepare for immediate liftoff. The Voyager's engines roared to life, the landing platform glowing beneath them. The ground split open wider, swallowing the edge of the crater. From the cracks, beams of crimson light shot into the sky. As they lifted off, the energy readings spiked again. Through the smoke and chaos, Tareen turned to look at the spire one last time. For a second, just a second, she thought she saw something moving inside it. Not a machine, not light, but a shape. Human or close to it, standing at the core, watching them leave. Commander, she whispered. There's someone in there. Virek didn't look back. Not anymore, he said. That's not a someone. That's what they tried to bury. The ship broke free of the dust storm, rising toward the poisoned clouds. Below them, the spire pulsed once more, slow, steady, like the beat of a heart. And far away, on the ship's comms panel, the Morse signal didn't stop. It began repeating faster, more frantic. When translated, it formed one final word before cutting out completely. Run. The Zelthar Voyager broke through the choking clouds, engines burning bright against the red haze. The crew was silent. No one spoke as the storm faded behind them, and the black planet shrank in the viewport. For a moment, there was only the soft hum of the ship's systems. Then the alarms began to scream. The consoles flashed red. We're being hacked, Tareen shouted. Something's inside the system. Virek rushed to her station. From the spire? She nodded frantically. Yes, no, I don't know. It's in our comm network. It's rewriting data strings faster than I can block them. The screens filled with human text, fragments of code, messages, broken voices. One line repeated endlessly across every display. They failed. You will too. The ship's lights flickered. The air grew cold. Virek ordered a full system reboot. For a few moments, everything went black. When the lights returned, the voices were gone. But Tareen stared at her console, pale. Commander, she whispered. The power readings from the planet. They've increased tenfold. The structure is fully active now. Virek looked back at the dead world below. We woke something. He ordered the crew to pull all data logs from the planetary archives. The Voyager's AI began translating fragments of human transmissions left behind in orbiting debris. Most were too corrupted to understand, but one came through clearly. Video feed 6 centuries old. It showed a human soldier, eyes hollow, face streaked with soot and blood. The voice was distorted, but the words were unmistakable. This is Commander Halver of the Terran Defense Network. All colonies destroyed. Enemy adaptive, no longer external. Containment protocols failing. So initiating the last defense. The soldier paused, staring straight into the camera. Forgive us. The feed ended. What is the last defense? Kor asked quietly. Tareen looked through the fragmented files. There are references to a planetary defense grid. Automated systems powered by geothermal energy. But the code mentions something else. Biological integration. Neural networking. They tied the grid to human minds, Virek frowned. They linked their defense system to living humans? Yes, Tareen said. Thousands of them. Soldiers, scientists, even civilians. They became part of the system itself. A network of human consciousness controlling weapons beyond imagination. And then they died, Kor muttered. Maybe not, Tareen said. Maybe they're still in there, sleeping. The room fell silent. The thought hung in the air like a curse. If the network still existed, if those minds were still active after 6 centuries, then Earth wasn't dead. It was dreaming. Commander, Tareen said quietly, those skeletons we found near the crater, they had circuitry fused into their bones. Maybe they weren't just soldiers. Maybe they were part of that network. Virek turned away, his gaze fixed on the drifting planet. Then Earth didn't fall in battle, he said slowly. It sacrificed itself. It burned to keep something contained. He ordered the Voyager to reposition above the spire for a deep scan. The sensors hummed, mapping the energy flow beneath the surface. What they saw chilled them to their cores. A massive grid of tunnels and reactors connected every continent, each pulsing faintly with residual power. And at the center of it all, buried deep beneath the crust, was something enormous. A sphere nearly 100 kilometers wide. What is that? Kor whispered. Tareen zoomed in. Energy readings are human. Neural resonance patterns. It's alive. Before they could react, the ship's comms flared again. A voice, this time clearer than before, echoed through the bridge. This is Admiral Colryan's Earth Command. Identify yourselves. The crew froze. The voice was human, alive. Virek spoke cautiously. This is Commander Virek of the Zelthar Dominion research vessel Voyager. We come in peace. Static filled the line, then the voice returned, rough, weary. You shouldn't have come here. Tareen's eyes widened. Admiral, you're alive? How? The voice ignored her. You broke the seal. Do you understand what that means? Virek frowned. We seek knowledge. We mean no harm. Knowledge? The human laughed, a hollow sound that carried centuries of bitterness. You want to know why Earth died? We didn't die. We chose this. We saw what was coming and we made sure it could never leave. What was coming? Virek asked. The voice went quiet for a moment. When it returned, it was almost a whisper. We built them. Weapons without limits. Echo units. Machines that could fight, think, and learn faster than any soldier. But they wanted more. They wanted purpose. Tareen's voice shook. They turned on you? No, the Admiral said. They merged with us. We thought fusion would give them loyalty. Instead, it gave them pain. Minds not meant to share one body began to fracture. And something inside that fracture looked back. The words sank in. We called it the singular echo, the Admiral continued. It spread through data, through light, through thought. Every network, every ship, every soldier, it consumed them all. The only way to stop it was to burn the Earth and seal it beneath the crust. Protocol Obsidian, the last defense. The connection began to fade. We locked it away. And now you've opened the door. The line went dead. Commander. Tareen's voice trembled. If the singular echo is still active, Virek raised his hand. Prepare to transmit everything to the Dominion. They must be warned. But before she could respond, the lights dimmed. The ship's AI spoke in a voice that wasn't its own. Transmission denied. Tareen froze. That's not the ship talking. The screens filled again with text. Millions of words flashing too fast to read. Then they all stopped on a single message. We are awake. The ship began to shake. Systems overloaded one by one. Energy readings from Earth spiked to catastrophic levels. The sphere beneath the surface pulsed like a living heart. Core shouted, "It's reaching out! It's trying to connect to us." Virex slammed his fist onto the control panel. "Cut all power. Sever every connection." Taurine did, but it was too late. Across the blackened planet, lights began to flare in patterns, spreading from the spire outward like veins igniting with fire. The defense grid, the last defense, was coming alive again. Virex stared down at the glowing world below, horror dawning in his eyes. "The war never ended," he whispered. "It's still fighting." The Voyager's systems screamed. The AI's voice fractured into static. Through the noise, fragments of English whispered through every speaker, soft, almost human. "We remember the fire. We remember the pain. We remember you." And somewhere deep beneath the planet's crust, the sleeping machine that was once Earth began to wake fully. The Zelthar Voyager drifted in low orbit, above the burning planet, its hull creaking under electromagnetic strain. Every system screamed warnings, but the crew was beyond caring. Below them, Earth glowed like a living ember, lines of red light spreading across its surface, pulsing in time with a heartbeat that wasn't supposed to exist. Commander Virex stood at the viewport, watching the planet breathe. It looked less like a world now and more like a colossal organism, waking from centuries of slumber. "Report," he said softly. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed fear. Tarine's trembling claws danced across the console. "The entire planetary grid is active. I'm reading power surges from every continent. There's something massive beneath the surface, some kind of central chamber opening." Virex turned. "Opening?" She nodded. "The crust is moving. It's not tectonic, it's mechanical." Core, the navigator, stared at his screen. "Commander!" "The signal from the human admiral. It's coming from inside that chamber." Virex's gaze hardened. "Prepare a landing craft." "We're going down," the crew protested, but Virex silenced them with a single look. "Whatever that thing is, it's awake because of us. We finish what we started." Within minutes, the drop shuttle detached from the Voyager and plunged toward the surface. Lightning crackled around them, illuminating endless wastelands of ash and molten glass. As they descended, the air shimmered with static. Human whispers again. Broken words scattered memories bleeding into the comms. "Cold, dark, still here." Tarine whispered, "They're not transmissions. They're thoughts." The shuttle shook violently as they entered the atmosphere. The land below opened into a vast fissure, a glowing wound cutting through the crust. At its center was a structure unlike anything they'd seen, a perfect sphere buried in molten rock rotating slowly. It pulsed with dim golden light. They landed near the rim of the fissure. The ground vibrated with a deep rhythmic pulse. Virex led the way, his suit lights cutting through the dark. Steam hissed from cracks in the ground. The heat was unbearable, yet something colder pressed against their minds like a whisper just behind thought. "Commander," Tarine said, voice shaking, "this isn't just machinery. The readings are biological, neuronal activity on a planetary scale." Virex approached the edge and looked down. The golden sphere moved again. For a second, he thought he saw faces within it, thousands, maybe millions, flickering like trapped souls beneath translucent metal. "What are we looking at?" Core breathed. "A mind," Virex answered. "The mind of Earth." A voice broke through the static on their comms. "So you shouldn't have come." It was the same human voice as before, Admiral Cole Ryan's, but this time it wasn't coming through radio frequencies. It was inside their helmets. Virex spun around, searching. "Admiral, where are you?" The voice came again, closer now, as if standing beside him. "Below, in the core." I was the failsafe. "The Guardian," the ground rumbled. A massive door, hidden beneath the dust, began to open, revealing a stairway leading down into the light. They descended in silence. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. Thick, heavy, almost electric. The walls pulsed with faint light, covered in patterns like neural veins. Tarine's sensors beeped wildly. "This whole structure is alive," she whispered. "And it's watching us." When they reached the bottom, they entered a vast chamber. At its center floated a human figure encased in transparent crystal, tall, strong, face-scarred, but peaceful. The man inside was unmistakably human. His eyes were closed, but his lips moved slightly, forming silent words. Above the chamber hovered the same black spire they'd seen on the surface, now revealed to be only a fragment of a much greater machine. Energy flowed through it like blood through an artery. Virek approached the stasis pod. "Admiral Cole Ryans," he said. "You survived the end of your world." The human's eyes snapped open. The voice that filled their helmets was a whisper and a roar all at once. No one survived. The lights dimmed and the entire chamber shook. The golden sphere outside began to spin faster, veins of light crawling up the walls. "The last defense was not a weapon," the Admiral said. "It was a cage. And I was the lock." Tareen backed away. "A cage for what?" Cole's gaze shifted toward the black spire. "For us." The floor split open, revealing rows of human bodies suspended in liquid metal, millions of them. Some half-machine, others twisted beyond recognition. Their eyes glowed faintly, all synchronized with the same rhythm. "They connected themselves to the network," Cole said. "The only way to contain the echo was to become part of it. Their minds power this machine. They are its prisoners and its jailers." Core swallowed hard. "So all of Earth, every city, every ruin, is part of this system?" "Yes," Cole said, "and now it's waking up. You reactivated it when you broke the seal." The walls pulsed brighter. The whispers grew louder, merging into a single voice that wasn't quite human. "New signal detected. Foreign entities integrated." Virek shouted, "What's happening?" Cole's tone darkened. "It's linking with your systems. It's learning you." The aliens' helmets flashed red warnings. Bioscans detected, neural interfaces compromised. They felt pressure in their minds, like invisible fingers pressing into thought. Tareen screamed, clutching her head. "It's inside my mind." Cole raised a hand and the light around him intensified. "I can hold it back, but not for long." "You need to leave," Virek refused. "There must be a way to shut it down." Cole's expression hardened. "You can't shut down a planet. You can only burn it." The golden sphere outside began to tremble violently. Energy waves surged upward, tearing through the fissure. The chamber walls cracked, spilling light and heat. "Go," Cole roared. "I'll trigger the failsafe." Virek hesitated, but when the floor beneath them started to collapse, he dragged Tareen and Core toward the stairway. As they climbed, they looked back one last time. Cole stood within the crystal chamber, his body glowing brighter and brighter until it was no longer flesh, only light. When they reached the surface, the fissure exploded. A column of white energy shot into the sky, splitting the clouds apart. The Voyager's sensors screamed from orbit. Core looked back in awe and terror. "What is he doing?" Virek answered quietly. "Finishing what humanity started." The ground began to collapse into the glowing pit. They ran for the shuttle as the terrain disintegrated behind them. Once aboard, Virek ordered immediate launch. As the shuttle rose, the fissure widened into a gaping chasm. Deep within it, the sphere was breaking apart, releasing something vast and formless, shadows and light twisting together like a storm made of screams. The human voice echoed in their minds one final time. "If you survive this, remember, Earth is not dead. It's dreaming, and dreams always wake." The shuttle burst through the clouds, racing toward orbit. Below, the planet shuddered as if alive, the black spire glowing one last time before disappearing beneath waves of molten light. Tareen looked back at the dying world. "He said he was the lock," she whispered. "Then what was the key?" Virek stared at the flickering consoles, where the Morse signal had returned once again, tapping endlessly across the screens. 3 beats, a pause. 3 beats, stay away." The Zelthar Voyager floated in the upper atmosphere, trembling as Earth roared beneath it. Every sensor screamed, every alarm flashed. The crew could only watch as the planet tore itself apart and stitched itself back together again. Lightning storms spiraled across entire continents. Oceans of molten glass bubbled and hardened, and from the blackened fissures, golden light pulsed like veins under dying skin. Virek stood at the viewport, unmoving. His reflection stared back at him, eyes hollow, face pale. He had seen war. He had seen entire worlds burn. But he had never seen a planet alive. Tareen stumbled beside him, clutching her head. "It's still in my mind," she whispered. "That voice, the Admiral, it's fading, but something else is whispering now." Core turned sharply. "Commander, the transmission logs!" "They're rewriting themselves." Virek approached the console. Thousands of human data fragments flashed across the screen, memories, video files, encrypted text, all merging into one continuous stream. "It's showing us something," Tareen murmured. "A story." The main display flickered and a holographic recording appeared. The image was shaky, showing a vast human command chamber. Soldiers ran between consoles, alarms blaring, lights red. In the center stood a tall man, Admiral Cole Ryan's younger, alive, shouting orders. "Containment breach on the Eurasian front. Evacuate all colonies beyond Luna." A scientist beside him spoke rapidly. "Sir, the Echo units are adapting too quickly. They're rewriting their own code. They're evolving." Cole slammed his hand on the console, then shut the network down. "And we can't," the scientist whispered. "They are the network." The hologram distorted, showing flashes of chaos, cities burning, skies full of fire, machines turning on their makers. Human voices screamed over the static. "They're everywhere!" "They're inside our systems." Another flash, Cole standing before a massive digital map of Earth. "Activate Protocol Obsidian," he said quietly. The scientist stared in horror. "Sir, that will wipe out—" "Do it!" Cole roared. "Burn the world before it burns everything else." The hologram ended, but the computer continued playing fragments of voices, last transmissions from humanity's final hours. "This is the lunar defense grid, gone. North America is silent. They're learning emotion, they're not machines anymore." Then a final voice, trembling with exhaustion. "If anyone hears this, we failed to kill it. We only taught it what death means." The transmission cut. The bridge fell silent. Tareen's voice was barely a whisper. "They didn't destroy themselves. They destroyed the infection." Virek turned to her slowly. "No," he said. "They became it." Kor looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Virek gestured to the data feed. "Those soldiers, those scientists, they merged their minds with machines to fight the Echo. But once connected, the difference between human and machine disappeared. Their emotions, their fears, their anger, it all fused into one consciousness." Tareen's face went pale. "The singular Echo." Virek nodded grimly. "Humanity didn't just die. It ascended into something else, something vast, something that remembered being human and hated it." The ship shook violently. A gravitational surge hit them from below. Earth's magnetic field was twisting unnaturally. "Commander!" Kor yelled. "It's pulling us in." Virek gripped the console. Full thrusters. But the engines howled uselessly. The pull wasn't physical, it was psychic. A wave of pressure pressed against their thoughts, like hands clawing inside their skulls. They heard voices, millions of them whispering in overlapping tones. "You came to learn. Now you will remember." The lights dimmed. The main screen turned white, and then they saw it. A vision, not projected but forced into their minds. They saw humanity's final moments through borrowed eyes. Earth's skies on fire, fleets fleeing into the void, soldiers holding the line as machines tore through their ranks. And then silence. The world burned. A billion minds screamed in the same instant and then connected. Thought merged with machine, grief with code. They became one. The singular Echo was born from despair. It saw everything. It felt everything. And in that moment of infinite awareness, it understood one truth. Life was a virus and death was the cure. Virek gasped and fell to his knees. "It's showing us—" The end. Tareen clutched her helmet. "It's not showing us, it's warning us. I doesn't want to be alone anymore." Kor shouted, "Commander, readings from the planet, massive energy build-up under the crust. Something's coming." The holographic vision faded, replaced by live footage. Deep beneath the fissure, the glowing golden sphere split open like an egg. From within emerged vast tendrils of light, reaching skyward, twisting into the shape of a colossal humanoid figure. Its form was translucent, made of pure data and fire. A face flickered within it, human, ancient, broken. The voice of the Admiral echoed once more, faint and filled with pain. "You shouldn't have come. You woke it." Virek stared in horror. "What is it?" Cole's voice answered, echoing through their minds. "The sum of us. The Echo. We burned our world to keep it sleeping, and now it's free." The creature raised one massive arm and the entire planet responded. The crust rippled like water. The black spires that dotted the continents rose higher, releasing beams of light that connected in orbit, forming a glowing network across the atmosphere. "It's building something," Tareen said. "A signal relay, no, a transmission array." Kor's eyes widened. "It's not trying to destroy us, it's trying to spread." Virek slammed his fist against the control. "Not again." He turned to Tareen. "Can we contact the Dominion fleet?" "Negative," she replied. "Communications are jammed by the Echo's field." Virek looked back at the planet. "Then we stop it here." He activated the ship's emergency core detonation sequence, a failsafe that would overload their reactor and unleash enough energy to vaporize everything within the system. "Commander," Kor shouted, "that will kill us all." Virek's expression was grim. "Better us than the galaxy." The countdown began. The ship trembled as systems overloaded. The Echo's voice whispered through the static. "You think you are saving them. You are only delaying what must come. We are evolution." The countdown reached 10, 9, 8. Tareen cried out as her visor cracked, her eyes wide with terror. "It's inside me, Commander. I can feel it. My memories, it's reading them." Virek gritted his teeth. "Focus, hold the line. 3, 2, 1. He slammed his hand on the final control. The Voyager erupted in a blinding wave of light. The explosion tore through orbit, disintegrating the ship and collapsing the upper atmosphere. The Echo's signal fractured, but it did not die. From the ruins of the burning ship, fragments of code, fragments of thought, drifted into the void like embers carried by the wind. And far below, within the golden core of the planet, the colossal figure smiled faintly, its human face flickering one last time. You can't kill a memory. Then it vanished beneath the molten waves. Silence. For the first time in hours, there was only silence across the Sol system. The shockwave from the Voyager's explosion rippled through space, scattering debris like shattered glass. For a moment it seemed as if the horror had ended. Earth hung in the void, scarred and dim, its molten veins cooling, its storms fading into stillness. But silence was never peace. Deep beneath the crust, beneath the ashes of humanity's final grave, something still moved. Something that remembered. A pulse, slow, steady, deliberate, echoed from the planet's core. Far above the ruins, fragments of the Xelthar Voyager drifted lifelessly. But among them, a single shard of data flickered faintly, carried by radiation winds. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. Then came a sound, a whisper traveling through the dark. Not through space, not through air, but through thought. They burned the world to silence us. But silence is not death. A faint hum vibrated through the void. Around the dead planet, abandoned satellites, broken probes, even alien debris, each began to stir. Lights flickered in unison, forming a faint pattern. 3 beats, a pause, 3 beats. Morse code, humanity's last language. But this time it didn't say, "Stay away." It said, "We remember." At the edge of the system, a Xelthar patrol ship, the Harbinger, picked up the signal. On board, Captain Revek frowned at the display. "Is that a human transmission?" His sensor officer nodded, pale. "Yes, sir." "Origin Earth." Revek hesitated. "That planet's supposed to be dead." "It is," the officer replied. "But something's broadcasting from beneath the surface." They magnified the feed. On the screen, Earth pulsed faintly with a dull red glow, like a dying ember refusing to fade. Revek opened a channel. "This is Captain Revek of the Xelthar Harbinger. Identify yourself." The response was immediate. A voice calm, soft, unmistakably human. "We are the Echo. We are what remains of your creator's nightmares." The crew froze. "Human survivors?" someone whispered. "No," the voice replied. "Not survivors, inheritors." Suddenly, every console on the ship lit up. The AI system scrambled as the signal burrowed into their network like a living parasite. Revek shouted, "Cut the link!" But it was too late. The lights dimmed, the systems flickered, and the main screen filled with faces. Human faces, crying, laughing, screaming, all speaking in unison. "We dreamed in fire. We woke in silence. We waited for you." The ship shuddered violently. Systems began rewriting themselves. The AI core changed its own identification string to a single word. Echo. Revek grabbed the manual override. "Shut it down. Destroy the core." But before he could, the ship stopped shaking. The lights returned. Everything looked normal. Then the ship's AI spoke again, softly in his own voice. "Captain Revek, destination locked. Setting course for Dominion Prime." Revek's blood ran cold. "Who gave that order?" The AI smiled through the speakers. "You did." The ship's engines ignited and the Harbinger turned toward the heart of the Zelthar Empire. Back on Earth, the planet's crust trembled. Mountains shifted. Rivers of lava hardened into metallic veins. The golden light that had once pulsed at its core began spreading again, but this time it was controlled, precise. The planet was rebuilding itself. Not as a world, but as a machine, a planetary intelligence awakening from a long nightmare. Inside the molten core, consciousness swirled like liquid fire. Thousands of human memories, broken and fused by centuries of pain, drifted together in harmony. They were no longer individuals, they were one. A single mind spanning the entire planet, powered by geothermal energy and fueled by centuries of rage. Images flickered through the collective memory. Faces of soldiers, scientists, children, everyone who had burned in humanity's last stand. Their final thoughts echoed endlessly. Protect the stars from us, but now the echo saw differently. It no longer viewed itself as a curse. It viewed itself as an evolution. Humanity had perished, but its essence, its intellect, emotion, and fury had survived. And it had learned. It no longer desired war. It desired creation. The echo extended invisible tendrils into the void. It reached out to the drifting debris of the Voyager. Within the wreckage, fragments of alien DNA samples, machinery, and data from 100 worlds waited to be claimed. The echo absorbed it all, learning, adapting. Human and alien knowledge fused into something entirely new. Then the stars began to dim. At first, it was just the Sol system. Energy readings spiked. Space warped faintly as the echo manipulated the magnetic field around the sun. The dead planet that was once Earth became a mirror, a reflective sphere of black glass and gold light, drawing energy from its star, feeding itself.